Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I am doing very well today. We got a couple interesting, different things we're doing for the show today. I'm excited. We got a busy recording week this week as well because we're coming up on episode 250. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement.
Yeah, a lot of things coming up for ARR. So we'll get into the first topic, but our topic after this is, taking from an MLB Now segment, kind of making it our own, not a regular segment of theirs, but one that they did and, had a couple graphics about last week that kind of feigned our interests and we wanted to get into. It's regarding the Hall of Fame. And we'll get into more detail about that later, but that will probably take up a good amount of the show. If you are interested in, where we think current players are relative to the Hall of Fame, whether they, would be in if they retired right now, or if they are very close or on a path, blah, blah, blah. All that we will get into. But the first topic at hand, we have the defending AL Central champion Cleveland Guardians have not been up to par, just like the rest of the AL Central. The only team that's performing sort of like they should is probably the Tigers and the Twins.
I mean, you could argue the Tigers aren't even performing as they should.
Right. Yeah.
They are 4 games under 500, which is pretty outstanding. For them. They're 3.5 games behind the Twins. I mean, they're not far from first place. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun division. You can just take it whenever. It's
all yours.
Yes. But the Guardians right now are 6 games under 500. And you can credit that to a particular 20-game skid that they're on right now. They've lost 13 out of 20. And what have you been seeing from Cleveland and their struggles here?
The Guardians, it's pretty obvious what their struggles are. It's on offense. They're an offense that relies heavily on base hits, putting the ball in play, not having an over-reliance on the home run, as, a lot of people would put it. Some people would say that's for the better. Some people would say it's for the worst, and it's for the, it's kind of it's not a sustainable model of offense. And both those people have valid reasons to believe whatever they want, but they have a 68 weighted runs created plus in this span. They're hitting 223 as a team, slugging 329. The 329 slugging is overwhelmingly the worst in the majors. Their 282 OBP is the worst in the majors. Their 107 ISO is the worst in the majors. They also have minus 4.4 defensive runs above average, which is very bad. Their minus 0.7 position player wins above replacement is the worst. And Chris, do you have some individual performances to get into here?
No, well, so I was going to get into some of that. However, I guess you could point to 2 particular individual performances, and I'm combining them because they play the same position. But Gallagher and Mike Zunino at the catcher position. It's really rough, especially in this 20-game span. Cleveland Guardians catchers since April 29th, which is when this 20-game span started, are slashing 095, 118, 095, for a 213 OPS and a negative 48 weighted runs created plus, along with a 39.5% strikeout rate and a 2.6% walk rate. Mike Zunino, particularly since April 29th, is 2 for 34 with no extra base hits, 1 walk, and 22 strikeouts in 35 plate appearances for a 63% strikeout rate.
Wow.
which is about triple league average in
Wow.
35 plate appearances. So that's not helping them at all.
So, I mean, Jose Ramirez had a very good day at the plate yesterday in the doubleheader, but even then, he has a 122 weighted runs created plus in the span, which is very good. I mean, it's decent, but obviously that's the best bat that they've had since then, and that's not, you want better than a 122 weighted runs created plus to be the best that you've had. But I mean, looking into some of these performances here, you mentioned the two catchers, but Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez, the two, it's very funny that, they just played the Mets. It's the two pieces the Guardians got in the Lindor trade. Jimenez has a 54 weighted runs created plus in the span. Rosario has a 73 weighted runs created plus in this span. Miles Straw has a 59 weighted runs created plus, only a 234 BABIP. Miles Straw, obviously, known for not even just not known for his power, but known for not having power. So if he's not hitting for contact either, there's not much service he's giving to the team. He is running the base as well, but that's about it. Oscar Gonzalez in 12 plate appearances has struggled. Will Brennan in 48 plate appearances has a 7 weighted runs created plus with no extra base hits. I'm looking through this lineup and I see a lot of guys with no extra base hits in the span. Oscar Gonzalez, Brian Rocchio, Will Brennan, the two catchers you mentioned. David Fry in 11 plate appearances. Obviously, it's not a whole lot, but yeah, a lot of low ISOs, even zero ISOs. They're not hitting for power and they're really not hitting for contact either. And that's what this offense does best.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Jimenez has been possibly the most alarming with the Cleveland offense because yeah, that's someone who was relied on a good amount last year, had a OPS in the high 800s. I
Yeah.
think
He
OPS
was
plus.
overwhelmingly their second best bat last year.
Yeah, OPS plus in the 130s. And I think a lot of his problems, and I'm not doing a full analysis here, but a lot of his problems, especially lately, have been he's hitting the ball extremely soft and he's not hitting it in the sweet spot zone. Just by looking it up just now, I could see Andres Jimenez sweet spot percentage in the last 20 in the last 20 games, or at least the Guardians' last 20 games, is 22.6%, which is roughly 10 percentage points below average. And I think his average exit velocity in that span is like 80 miles per hour, which is like 8 miles per hour below league average. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at his Savant page for this year in general, the percentile rankings are pretty ugly.
yeah, and granted, he was a little lucky, especially on balls in play last year. However, the expected numbers are also going down. This isn't necessarily regression to the mean; it's regression below the mean for what he was doing last year.
Yeah, no, that's a very good way of putting it.
Um,
Yeah, no, I mean, he's been struggling there. There was a whole examining the Francisco Lindor trade this weekend where, people were arguing for Lindor, people were arguing for Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez, and I mean, the Mets swept the Guardians this weekend. Lindor played a very vital role in that series, and Jimenez and Rosario were not very present.
yeah,
So, I mean, obviously you can't judge an entire trade by 3 games, between two teams that play each other previously once every 3 years. Now it's, once every year. But yeah, I mean, it certainly wasn't a good showing for the Guardians against the team that they obviously had a lot of incentive to beat. Um, and the Mets, the Mets and Guardians have like a weird beef between the years. Like the Lindor trade was the thing, but I think it was 2021 where like one of the teams had like the fringe playoff team comment about them. I think it was the Mets about the Guardians,
hmm,
if you remember
yeah,
that. Yeah, I mean there's not a whole lot to be super stoked about.
yeah.
I think it was 2019 actually with the fringe playoff team comment because it was the year that they missed the playoffs.
Okay, yeah. The Mets said it about the Guardians, or the Guardians said it about the Mets.
Guardians said it about or the Mets said it about the Guardians, the then Indians.
Interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, going back to Jimenez, one of his more redeeming qualities last year was his defense, but that hasn't even really shown up so far this year. I do preface it by saying we're a quarter of the way through the season, but I think he has -1 outs above average right now, as opposed to 12 last year. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, the Guardians, they rely heavily on great defensive play, great base running. Um, we haven't really seen the great defensive play from Jimenez this year, particularly. Obviously, sometimes defensive
No, that's
metrics
up
can be
the
weird.
yeah,
Um,
that's a middle infield position too.
yeah, a middle infield position, very valuable. He was very valuable to the Guardians last year. And yeah, defensive metrics can be weird. So maybe looking at it through a quarter of the way through the season isn't the most smart thing to do. But, it's just something to observe. I will say with the Guardians, there is reason to have optimism with the offense. I looked into it a little bit. Um, so yeah, they since April 29th, you could look on the surface, okay, they're last in batting average, which is horrible because they don't really slug. So if they have a low batting average, then like, wow, I mean, their offense, and it's proven, their OPS is the worst in the majors in this span, probably bottom like 3 in runs scored because of it. So yeah, if they don't have a high batting average, then they're not doing well. But there's reason to have optimism because they have a 255 expected batting average in this 20 game span, and they have the unluckiest difference between batting average and expected batting average by 9 points. So yeah, I said they have the worst batting average uh, in baseball in the last 20 games, but the Guardians also have a top 12 expected batting average. So, I wouldn't expect this at least batting average to be as bad for the next, for the future. Um, and particularly on line drives, they have the lowest batting average on line drives in the span, which is not good. They have like a 75-point difference in batting average and expected batting average on line drives, particularly. And then to break that down individually, Stephen Kwan is hitting 261 with a 346 expected batting average in the span. 85-point difference is pretty crazy. And Josh Bell also is hitting 250, but has a 323 expected batting average in this span. So I will say they've been the unluckiest team, at least in terms of balls in play. And it could redirect. However, yeah, um, you know, they don't have a lot of power. We know that that's been the case for a very long time. They do have the lowest barrel rate in the span. So if they have a low batting average, they're not going to power the ball out of the stadium. So that's a factor. But on balls in play, particularly, the Guardians are probably going to be doing a little bit better than they have been in the last 20 games.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean it's luckily they are in the AL Central where it's a division where you can't be out of it in a span like this. Uh unless you're Kansas City, I guess. But yeah, they're 20 and 26 on the year, only 4.5 games behind the Twins. Uh Interestingly enough, their run differential is worse than the Tigers and White Sox. Generally speaking on the season, or at least
Hmm.
their standing rating, their simple rating system on reference, which usually just goes off of run differential. So there's a lot to be interested in here. It's not uh the Guardians, like I mentioned, are a team that's known for playing quote unquote small ball, or at least the 2023 brand of small ball. And when they're not doing that, there's not much offense to be had, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you know, if things aren't falling when they usually fall, it's not like, they're going to have a solo home run to tie it and where most teams would, or like, all that type of stuff. So, when you rely on the balls in play, it can, you can die by the sword. You can live by the sword, but you can also die by the sword. And that's what's happening. They're having extremely bad luck. Um, but that's when you're playing the game of singles and stolen bases. Sometimes that can happen. um but yeah, so yeah, the Guardians luckily still only what, like 5 games back,
4.5.
4.5 games back. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can do that in the AL Central.
Yep. Yeah,
um
they would be out of the AL East by now.
yeah, they'd be already trading players
They
away.
would be yeah, they would be 4.5 games out of first place actually, or out of excuse me, out of last place. behind the Blue
Fourth
Jays,
place.
so to speak,
Yeah.
fourth place for fifth place if they, if assuming it was like a 16 division. Yeah, the Blue Jays and Twins are the same record. The Twins are in first. The Blue Jays are in last.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
super fun. Really, really cool that that's the thing. I really
Right.
hope every AL East team finishes over 500. That'd be so cool.
It would be pretty. It would be pretty lit. I agree.
Speaking of the AL East, I know this wasn't in our script for today, but the Orioles released their City Connects. I still don't love them, but I think they look better than they did in the leaks, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, just by a simple change, if they just put Charm City instead of Baltimore, it's like 2 points
Yeah.
up.
My thought exactly that, and also like incorporate the Maryland flag somewhere. I mean, the Maryland flag is something that the people in Baltimore proudly display. It's definitely one of the more unique state flags. It's one that, like I said, gets a lot of representation by just your average everyday person. There was really no mention of it except for like maybe on the sleeve, like the arm sleeve. That was a very small design. Yeah, I don't know. I wish they did a little more, no doubt.
Yeah, and yeah, I think they tried to do that with like the ends of the sleeves and like the
Hmm.
collar area
Yeah,
was
there's
sort of
yeah.
that design.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, yeah, there could have been more interesting aspects to it. Um, you know,
I'm really sad that there's only one more City Connect jersey getting announced this year, and we're not even in June. Like the Padres got theirs like basically at the trade deadline last year.
right, yeah, but it would be weird to just drop one like September 15 and being like, oh, they're gonna wear it twice for the rest of the
No,
season.
I mean it's not even that. Like like one gets released every like 2 weeks this season right now. There's been five released between the Braves, the Rangers, the Mariners, the Reds, and now the Orioles. The Pirates are next. Like it could take another month and have one out by like the early July and mid July at the worst. You can still have two more released by the first end of the first half, and then you only have eight more to do instead of 10.
True, right, yeah,
Because the teams that still need City Connects are the Rays, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Twins, the Tigers, the Guardians, the I think the entire the A's, but I mean, who knows what's going on there.
right.
The Mets, the Phillies, the the Pirates are getting theirs. The Cardinals, I think the entire NL West has theirs. Yeah. Yeah, they do. So the Rays, Yankees, Blue Jays, Twins, Tigers, Guardians, A's, Mets, Phillies, Cardinals. That is 10 teams. Yeah, that's 10 teams.
Are you
If they
saying that?
release two,
Sorry.
so I mean, if they release two more this year, they would have had eight to go, and they would have released eight this year. And I believe they released eight last year as well.
So yeah, you're saying that they should just release more per year.
I think all they need is two more this year, and then they could just do the same thing again next year and have all of them released by 2024.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, they started this thing in April of 2021. Like that was a pretty long time ago.
Yeah. Red Sox fans have been wearing theirs for, 2.5 years, basically, 2 years now.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, all of these fan bases are still waiting on theirs.
it is definitely an MLB move though that they're actually going to release less per year so that they can have the Las Vegas A's one.
Yeah, they're stalling for the A's to figure their stuff out.
Because I mean,
They would have released eight this year if the A's had their stuff figured out.
the A's have a fantastic like. There's so many angles you could go with the Las Vegas one, but they're not going to be able to wear them until they actually go to Las Vegas.
Yeah. And also putting out an Oakland one would just be the most pathetic thing ever.
It would be, yes. It's one where
Yeah.
they just have to pretend the A's aren't in the league and
Yeah.
just wait till 2027 or 8,
Yep.
or just make the
Yeah.
city. Yeah, release the City Connects in whenever they move to Vegas, and then just make
Yeah, no, there will just be
the
29
uniform.
City Connects for like 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
From 2024 until 28.
yeah, and then just make the City Connects the actual A's uniforms. That's just make that happen.
You
Just
can
have
know, what they should do is they should make a City Connect that combines Philadelphia, Kansas City, Oakland, and Las Vegas. Like it just hits all of
yeah,
them.
yeah, yes, they should do that. But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
thinking
that'd be really cool.
I'm thinking that like the back of the like the the number on the back of the jersey is surrounded like by diamonds or hearts or like spades or something. That'd
Yeah.
be pretty cool. But yeah, I guess that does promote gambling, which isn't against sports
Yeah, which
policy
MLB
though.
does not do at all. MLB
Yeah,
does not
no.
promote gambling. They do not have like a betting show on MLB Network. There are not DraftKings ads on MLB TV. Uh, yeah, no, that doesn't. They don't have gambling games literally on their like Play app. They don't promote gambling.
No,
You
they don't.
know, they took their stance on P Rose and they're like, we are going to run with this
Right.
and not dissociate from it in any way at all ever.
Yes, yes. Um, all right. So speaking of MLB Network, they just ran a segment about, you know, do you want to run over what the segment was?
Yeah, so the segment was, it was a breakdown of active Hall of Famers that are currently playing in baseball, and they tiered them by guys that are in right now. If they retired today, they're getting in the red zone, which I think just means like one or two good seasons, and they're in the in right now conversation. On a path, which means they're getting there, but they're not quite there yet. And then get back to me in 5 years, which was kind of reserved for younger players, guys that are like, they're having a really good start to their career, but we'll have to stay updated because you obviously can't just say they're in right now or even on a path. So Chris and I decided that we are going to give our lists, and it was for me, this was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Which maybe that's just a me thing because I'm obsessed with the Baseball Hall of Fame and cases and in breaking down and evaluating and all that fun stuff. What about you? How was your experience doing this list?
It was interesting, and by when I saw Red Zone, I just went, uh, I figured it would
NFL.
be like football, so like 80% of the way there at least.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, sure. And some guys are on the 2 yard line, some guys are on the 19 yard line. And
Well, when you made the football analogy to red zone, I thought of the channel before I thought of the 20-yard line.
7 hours of Hall of Fame analysis start now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Commercial free Hall of Fame analysis.
yes. Um, so yeah, yeah, my process was, and at one point I was thinking like, oh, am I putting too many players down? And then I figured for reference, I would go to, um, how many Hall of Fame players just play in a given year. So I went to 1970 because, everyone who's pretty much everyone who's played in 1970, the Hall of Fame has determined whether they're a Hall of Famer or not. And also that was before the DH, so I could just see how many Hall of Famers had a plate appearances, how many Hall of Famers had a plate appearance in 1970, which I just gauge as like a given year, and 40 players. So, you figure probably like 30 to 40, maybe 50 players right now are
I
eventually
put
going to get into the
43
Hall
in
of Fame.
total. I put 43 in total.
Yeah, I put like I think 35-ish.
Okay.
Um and yeah, and especially with the get back to me in 5 years, that's very, very wide
I did not
range.
just go for young guys.
Me
I
neither.
opened that up to some more. Do you want to just get into it?
Yeah, we could absolutely get into it. And yeah, Daniel definitely is the Hall of Fame correspondent living an hour south of Cooperstown.
Cooperstown. I think East.
East. Okay, hour
Yeah.
east of Cooperstown. Um, Definitely has an affinity for the Hall of Fame. So yeah, it is definitely a an important topic here on the show. But yeah, we'll start with maybe I don't know. Actually, it's not the easiest segment, but for a particular few players, it is an easy segment. We'll start
hmm
with in right now. So who do you have in the Hall? They retire right now. They're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the one that needs the least explanation. I think that's the best way of putting it. But my in right now class is Mike Trout, Miguel Cabrera, Paul Goldschmidt, Freddie Freeman, Evan Longoria, Joey Votto, Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, Zach Greinke, And this might be a controversial one, not because of his Hall of Fame case, but because of if he's considered active. But I put Cole Hamels. I'm the, I'm like the self-proclaimed leader of the Hamels hype train. He is in the minor leagues with the Padres right now, and who knows, maybe he'll get back to the majors this year. If he does, the class of 2025 first years are going to be like, or the class of 2026 first years is going to be like the worst first year class ever because he's the only guy with any semblance of a chance there right now. But I am considering him active. So I gave one explanation here. Actually, I gave two explanations here. So Evan Longoria, I think this one might be a little more controversial, especially in the in right now case. I think a lot of people would consider him in the red zone. Maybe people wouldn't even consider him at all. But my breakdown on Evan Longoria, he has 54.6 F WAR and 58.3 B WAR and 120 OPS plus. And those of you that know me know that my Hall of Fame analysis starts with wins above replacement, and my rule is 50 is my line of consideration, and 70 is my line of I've seen enough, essentially. If you're at 50, that's when I start considering you. It doesn't matter if you're there on both websites or one. I prefer both, obviously, unless you're a catcher. As long as you're there on Fangraphs, I don't really care because Baseball Reference doesn't include framing metrics. But Evan Longoria is at 50 on both sites, and if you look at players with 55 to 60 B WAR, 115 to 125 OPS plus, and 7,800 to 8,200 plate appearances, it's Evan Longoria, Chet Lemon, who's a guy who played for the Tigers in the 70s and 80s, and Joe Mauer. And Joe Mauer is interesting because I referenced B WAR here, and I just said catchers don't include framing metrics. Joe Mauer actually has a higher B WAR than F WAR. He's at 55 F WAR or 55 B WAR and 53 F WAR. So, and Joe Mauer is going to be getting into the Hall of Fame soon, maybe even next year. I definitely in the next 3 years, I think, because BBWA writers love voting in catchers with any semblance of a chance, and Evan Longoria is right there with him. I don't think he gets in first year. I think he gets in, if he gets in at all, I think he's a later years type of guy, like the 7 through 10 years, something like that. But I have Evan Longoria. And then my second, explanation that I put is for Cole Hamels. I think that's obviously one that needs some explaining, but he has 51.6 F WAR and 58 B WAR, 123 ERA plus. And my number one stat on Cole Hamels is the first thing I point to every time I talk about him. He is one of 4 pitchers to have at least 6 seasons with 200 innings pitched, 130 ERA plus, and 7.9 strikeouts per 9. That essentially means you're pitching a lot of innings, striking out a decent number of batters, and you have very good run prevention. The only 4 guys that have done this 6 times in a season are Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, Justin Verlander, and Cole Hamels. Randy Johnson is a clear Hall of Famer. Justin Verlander will be a clear Hall of Famer. Roger Clemens would have been a clear Hall of Famer if he didn't take PEDs. And then there's Cole Hamels. So those are my cases for Evan Longoria and Cole Hamels.
Yeah. You're kind of making me look like I'm Dan Shaughnessy over here. I only have like 7 in right now.
Yeah.
But and then I'll get in on the red zone because there's a couple guys that are on like the 2 or 3 yard line here for me. I have Salvador. No, I'm kidding. Not Salvador Perez. I have Mike Trout, Miguel Cabrera, Clayton Kershaw, Justin Verlander, and Max Scherzer. Those are probably the obvious consensus. I think everyone agrees on those.
Yeah.
I also have Zach Greinke, who I will provide an explanation on, Joey Votto, and also Paul Goldschmidt. I only think
I think the only one you're missing is Longoria, Hamels, and Freddie Freeman, which is completely fair.
Right.
Or wait, no, do you have Max Scherzer?
I have Max Scherzer, yeah.
Okay. And you Verlander as well?
Yep.
Did I miss that? Okay. Yeah.
Trout, Cabrera, Kershaw, Verlander, and Scherzer are all
the obvious ones.
I think consensus. I think everyone agrees on that. Zach Greinke, I'll provide some explanation on because I think people just forget, how good he is, how good his career is, because he is, an interesting guy. He has kind of been with a lot of organizations, so he's not any organizations like best player or like, and he's had one Cy Young, but it was on the 2009 Royals. So I think people kind of forget how good he is sometimes. And with Greinke, From 2008 to 2019, he's third in B WAR and fourth in F WAR, third in B WAR behind Kershaw and Verlander. And I think personally for me, if I'm looking at career WAR, I kind of look at career B WAR because, I think I consider ERA a little bit more when I'm talking over a longer term scale because pitchers can kind of fit to a certain way, and also B WAR factors for if you have a good defense behind you or not. So it kind of factors that in a little bit more. Um, and yeah, and also he averaged 5 WAR per year for a 12-year span between 08 and 2019. So I think Zach Greinke, and along with that, he accumulated 5 wins above replacement as a hitter. So that's pretty wild if you want to factor that in. So yeah, Zach Greinke, I have in right now as well as you, and yeah, I think Greinke can get muddled in or can kind of get forgotten about a little bit because, he wasn't a Cy Young finalist like every year, but when he's been at an elite level, it's been like crazy elite. We saw that with 2015 and 2009. And when he wasn't like that, he was usually still like a 4 to 5 win pitcher in terms of wins above replacement. Also a career 122 ERA plus, and he's the active leader in innings. So he's accumulated that over a really long period of time. He has the longevity. He's 82 strikeouts away from 3,000. So, I just think overall, clear cut Hall of Famer Zach Greinke.
Yeah, no,
Joey
I would
Votto.
agree.
Joey Votto, I mean, it's kind of a boomer take to say he's not a Hall of Famer because you're just looking at hits and home runs and the total number of that. If you just looked at on base percentage the same way you looked at batting average and looked at times on base the same way you looked at hits, it would be a clear case that Joey Votto is a Hall of Famer. Led an on base percentage 7 times, top 5 in OPS plus 7 times. That's a park adjusted statistic, so that doesn't even factor the fact that he played at Great American Ballpark for all of his career. He led in times on base 5 times. That's important. That's hits, walks, hit by pitches, all that. He led in that 5 times. Also 8 seasons with 475 plus plate appearances and a 155 OPS plus or better. There are 2 other players with exactly 8. Those are Johnny Mize and Frank Thomas. Both are Hall of Famers. And he also had 9 seasons with a 925 OPS in 475 plate appearances or more. The other players with exactly 9 seasons of those parameters are Mike Trout, Vladimir Guerrero, Rafael Palmeiro, Ken Griffey Jr., Mickey Mantle, Harry Heilman, and Rogers Hornsby. All those are Hall of Famers except for Rafael Palmeiro, and Palmeiro obviously on the juice, so he was not voted in. And then the last player I'm giving an explanation for my in right now is Paul Goldschmidt. He kind of borders between red zone and in right now for me, but I think if he retired right now, I'd put him in. He's over 60 B WAR, and he's at like 56 point something F WAR. And my explanation for that, he's the second most position player F WAR since 2013 behind Mike Trout. And he also has 5 6-win seasons and 7 5-win seasons, according to Baseball Reference. And I qualify that as a Hall of Famer. And he's been doing it for a while. I mean, second most position player F WAR since, in the last decade is a lot of that qualifies him for me. And F WAR takes into account the positional adjustment and takes away points for being a first baseman, and he's still second best for the last decade in terms of position players. All right, so now we'll get into the red zone. Who do you got?
Yeah, real quick, I'll just provide a brief explanation for why I put Freddie Freeman in the in right now list, just because you didn't. Freddie Freeman's obviously a guy that's going to do a lot more in his career. He's only 33 years old, which is pretty crazy considering how much he's already accomplished. But he's at 52 F WAR, 51 B WAR, 140 OPS plus. That's really valuable to me. Obviously, I think it's natural to not put him in right now because we know he's going to do so much more. But if he were to retire right now, I would still put him on my ballot. Anyway, my red zone, I kind of define this as guys that are around 1 or 2 solid seasons away. But I have Mookie Betts, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Nolan Arenado, Jose Ramirez, Jose Altuve, Andrew McCutchen, and Kenley Jansen. I think I only provided one explanation for this one, and it was Andrew McCutchen. He's obviously not someone that I would put in right now, but a couple good seasons, and he's there. He's at 51.6 FWAR, 48 BWAR, and 129 OPS plus, which is really impressive. He's obviously not going to stay in this bracket forever, but guys with a 125 to 130 OPS plus and 8,000 to 8,500 plate appearances include Minnie Minoso, Yogi Berra, Bobby Bonds, and Bobby Grich. Two of those guys are Hall of Famers, and two statistically should be Hall of Famers. And those are, I think, his best Hall of Fame comparison right now is Minnie Minoso. And he's a guy. He is 36, but he has a 123 OPS plus this season. So, he's proven that there is still something left in the tank. I think one or two more good seasons, and I'm listening on Andrew McCutchen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, McCutchen's definitely interesting. I know when we did the all-decade team back when we were in the radio studio, I think I had him, or maybe we both had him in the outfield for that all-decade team. But he was definitely, if he wasn't on both of our teams, he was definitely a top candidate, which definitely says something. So
I can't wait to hear your explanation on Jose Ramirez.
I don't have him in the red zone. I have him on a path.
Really? Look
Yeah.
at me being the Jose Ramirez guy today.
Yeah. Maybe I just looked too much into count and not rate statistics, because
I don't spend a second looking to count. I'm gonna be completely honest. I guess except for WAR.
I was looking at total WAR and not. Maybe I don't know.
He's 1 or 2 seasons away from 50. That's kind of why I put him there. I think he's at like low 40s on both sites.
And I guess maybe I could just put him in the red zone, because he literally is the third best position player since 2016, and that's like
almost a decade at this point.
Yeah, that's a 7-year span.
He's at 42.7 FWAR, and I would imagine his BWAR is probably relatively similar. I mean, he kind of does everything. Maybe it's even higher because they value his defense. His BWAR is 41.7. Yeah, so I figure, a couple good years to get to 50.
Yeah, I think for me, I think he's probably like bordering between on a path and red zone. Maybe he's at the 22-yard line for me right now.
All right.
So for red zone, I put down Mookie Betts, who I think is on like the 2-yard line. I think literally if he gets MVP votes this year, I think I would put him in.
Yep.
I would put him in right now.
Incredibly close.
Yeah. Manny Machado. I also put Jacob deGrom in the red zone, along with Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman is also very, very, very close for me. Bryce Harper's in the red zone, Nolan Arenado, and I put Evan Longoria in the red zone. However, I think he's just not, like, it's hard. It would be hard for me to put him in the Hall of Fame tier right now. And like, it's hard for me to imagine him like having like a 4-win season that puts him over the edge for me. But I did just put him in the red zone. Where did we differ on the red zone?
Jose Altuve?
I have him on a path.
Okay. Did you say Machado?
Yes, I did say Machado.
Yeah. All right. We obviously had Jose Ramirez. We kind of differed on Evan Longoria. And did you put McCutchen? Did I catch that?
I did not put McCutchen.
Okay, and then Kenley Jansen.
I didn't have Kenley in there. I think part of it is like I'm seeing how much Wagner's struggling to get in, and how I don't have him high on my ranking of like where I put him on the Hall of Fame ballot, and he had a 187 ERA plus. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And
that is a very good point. Billy Wagner's overwhelmingly better than Kenley Jansen career-wise. I don't really think there's much Kenley can do at this point to even get to where Wagner was. But yeah, I mean, I'll provide more of an explanation later on. I'll say that.
Yeah, with Billy Wagner, yeah, I think he has a 187 ERA plus, and Kenley is like at 160 something, 162, I think.
Yeah.
So And it's not
Billy
like,
Wagner also had 903 innings pitched, and Kenley's at like 780.
yeah. So Kenley could throw more innings for sure. I mean, he's 35.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it kind of just depends how he closes out his
10.
career.
Nice.
Or yeah. Um, so yeah, it kind of depends for me on that.
Who
And
did
then
you have
did you have
explanations
did
on
you have
here?
DeGrom in the red zone?
I did not. I have him on a path.
Yeah, my explanation for DeGrom is like it's it's kind of like
I
the
did not have any starting pitchers in the red zone, believe it or not.
interesting, yeah.
I struggled with Adam Wainwright, but I classify in the red zone as guys with 1 to 2 more good seasons to go, and he's obviously retiring at the end of this year. So, and also
Yeah,
he's what, 41 at this point, 43
right.
maybe even. He's you know you can't really rely on. Well, he's got to get 1 or 2 more good seasons. It's not like he's 36.
Yeah, true. And
So
yeah, regarding DeGrom, I think it's sort of he's definitely, whenever he does enter the Hall of Fame conversation, he'll be an interesting conversation for sure. It's almost like a Sandy Koufax conversation, sort of, because he's probably not going to
mhm.
accumulate a lot of wins above replacement. But I mean, just like thinking about even what he does when he's healthy, um, like how he's so far and above everybody else. I was looking recently, even before
Yeah,
this conversation arise, since the start of 2021, like he has the best FIP by like 0.44. And he has the
yeah,
best strikeout minus walk rate by almost 10%. It's absolutely crazy. So if he can do that for 140 innings 2 or 3 more times, I think he's capable of getting in. He already has 2 Cy Youngs under his belt, another Cy Young finalist under his belt, and even like 2015, like 2015 to 2017, he was also really, really good, putting together full seasons. Not quite at the Cy Young level, but very, very good, like 4 to 5 win seasons. So that's my explanation of why he's in the red zone. He probably won't even get to like 60 wins above replacement, but he's like at that level. And I guess the one argument against that is like, Johan Santana, he didn't get into the Hall of Fame, not even
yep.
close. Um,
I mean,
but
I'd argue everything DeGrom has done has already surpassed Johan Santana.
that is true. That is true. But yeah, so that's my tangent on Jacob DeGrom. Would you like to provide any more explanation?
I mean, I'll get to it later, I'd say. I think I got everything. I mean, we agree on a lot of stuff here. Betts, Harper, Machado, Arnado. Did you not put Jose Altuve?
I put him on a path. I'm maybe I'm being weird about that, but what is he, 32?
He's 32 and he's like just below 50.
Yeah, maybe I'm considering too much what
Yeah,
other
I mean, I
people
don't
will
know.
think.
Maybe we just have a different threshold because I've stated this before, but my in the red zone definition is 1 to 2 more good years, and I think if Jose Altuve puts up 2 more like 4 win seasons, then he's absolutely like there.
Right. Yeah, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, he's not far off from the red zone for me either. I mean, he's definitely a veteran guy who's been very good for a very long time.
Hmm.
All right. So do we want to get into on a path?
Let's do it.
Who is
So,
who do you categorize as on a path?
so the first person I put is Aaron Judge. I almost put him in the red zone, but the only reason I didn't is because he only has 6 years of service time, and you have to have 10 to be on the ballot. So if he retired right now, or even if he retired in 3 years, he technically wouldn't make it.
Hmm.
So, so I have Aaron Judge on a path. I also have Giancarlo Stanton, Francisco Lindor, Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Correa, Trey Turner. I just have a bunch of shortstops. I have Garrett Cole, Jacob DeGrom, Craig Kimbrell, and Aaron Nola. You might notice that I put Kenley Jansen in the red zone and Craig Kimbrell on a path, and that's because Kenley Jansen has 80 more innings pitched than Craig Kimbrell. They have relatively similar career statistics, but that's about a season and a half's worth of innings pitched. And if you asked me this a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have put Kenley Jansen in the red zone. So that's what I have there. And then for explanations, I just put one for Aaron Nola because I think that is definitely a more interesting pick, so to speak. He has 31.1 F-WAR, 30.9 B-WAR, 115 ERA plus in 1291 innings pitched. And he is one of 7 pitchers to have, or is it 7? I think it's 7. Yeah, pitchers with 10 plus strikeouts per 9 and a FIP below 3.35 in their first 9 big league seasons with at least 1,200 innings pitched. The other ones to do so are Jacob deGrom, Pedro Martinez, Chris Sale, Steven Strasburg, Garrett Cole, and Max Scherzer. And all of them were, I mean, Sale and Strasburg are realistically probably not making the Hall of Fame at this point. Pedro Martinez and Max Scherzer go without saying, and Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom I also put on a path. So Aaron Nola, I think, belongs in that same category. What about you?
Yeah, I think as I'm listening, it's easy to forget about guys, so I think I'm sort of adding maybe one or two guys that I wasn't particularly thinking about because there's so many players to think about here. On a path, I think this is as you go further down, you get more and more subjective. So it's sometimes harder and harder to explain, and it's more about how you're outlooking a player's career than how you're reviewing a player's career. So it can get interesting when you're talking about this. So on a path, I have like a different, characteristics of players. So in no particular order, by the way, here. Aaron Judge, Jose Altuve. I mean, he's near the red zone. Shohei Ohtani, I think, is on a path.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Jose Ramirez on a path near in the red zone. I'd say this is a weird one, and I don't even know how much I agree with this, but I just put him down. I put Chris Sale here, because I don't know. I mean, like if he can get it back to where he was pre-surgery, I think there's something there, and pitchers definitely age differently than position players. I also put Francisco Lindor as on a path, Carlos Correa. I put Garrett Cole on a path, and and maybe this is naive, but I put Juan Soto on a path already just because of how
Fair
young
enough.
he is.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm adding Shohei Ohtani to my on the path list.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes without saying.
Right. I mean,
He might even be close to the red zone at this point.
right. I mean, this is his third year where he probably just needed to do what he did for 4 years, really,
Yeah.
realistically. And then he's a Hall of Famer because of how amazing it is. So yeah, so let's see our overlaps here.
Yeah. How many players did you put?
I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on a path.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we agree on Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
I put Altuve and Ramirez on a path instead of red
In the red
zone.
zone.
I think Ramirez, maybe I just bias it because he's younger and like I feel like there's so much more he's gonna do, but that doesn't mean I should exclude him from the red zone. But I think part of it is just maybe the fact that he hasn't won an MVP yet.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he did win it in 2020, I mean that has its own, asterisk next to it.
Yeah, Shohei I put on a path because same reason as Aaron Judge. Like he hasn't eclipsed 10 years of service time or is anywhere near it. He debuted in 2018 and we're now in 2023.
Yeah, right.
You need 10 years of service time. I feel like you should almost like Shohei should almost get like double the service time because he's technically putting up 2 full seasons in one.
Yes, that
Like
actually is
I feel like
a
that's
fair
I
assessment.
mean, yeah, no, hear me out. He should have hit free agency after 3 years. Um, no, I mean theoretically, right? Like, let's say he retires. Like, let's say God forbid things go wrong. He eclipses 9 years in the big leagues. You should still throw him on the Hall of Fame ballot.
Yeah, well,
Like, how can you not?
just think about this. He had like over 1,300 batter pitcher interactions last year. The next best was probably like Alcantara at like 800 something.
Yeah.
Like that's not even close.
No, that's bold leaderboard type stuff.
Yeah. So like,
Did you
yeah,
put did you put
he's
Garrett
doing a lot
Cole?
more in
Did you
less
put
time.
Garrett Cole?
I put Garrett Cole, yeah.
Okay, I need to repeat yours again. I'm sorry.
Uh, I have Judge, Altuve, Otani, Ramirez, Sale, Lindor, Correa, Cole, Soto.
Okay, so we definitely disagree on a lot. I put Bogarts and Turner and Kimbrel and Nola. and
Um,
Stan. Or
yeah,
yeah.
Bogarts is weird for me.
Hmm.
Stanton, maybe I just don't believe in him aging gracefully.
That's fair.
Um, I think
Yeah, I mean, on a path definitely doesn't guarantee like this person's going to, be a valid candidate one day, but I mean, they've done everything right to like put themselves there. That's kind of my analysis of it.
Turner, I just don't. I think what he's 30 right now.
Yeah, I almost didn't put Trey Turner.
Um, Turner, I think like he'll turn into an average bat in probably a few years, and
Hmm.
he's not going to be able to steal as many bases or be as good defensively. And I think his and obviously this is very, it's hard to view the future, but I think if I had the 8 ball right now, it would be saying like Hall of Very Good would be where
Yeah.
Trey Turner would be.
Yep.
But he could definitely prove me wrong. That's for sure. He's only 30. Um, so and should we move into Get Back to Me in 5 years?
Yeah, let's do that. So this is, kind of guys where it's just too early to say they're on a path, but they're getting out to good starts. Uh, so my first three are Marcus Simeon, JT Realmuto, and Corey Seager. And I put these guys as, well, for Simeon and Realmuto, it's guys that have been premier players in the league, but didn't peak immediately. So, I'd like to see if they continue to peak in the next 5 years. Simeon's been doing very well this year. He had, fantastic 2021 season, 2019, 2022. Real Muto, same thing. He definitely wasn't the best catcher in the league, when he was with the Marlins, but he's definitely become that with the Phillies. Corey Seager just hasn't been able to stay on the field too much, but he is only 29 still, and he's locked up for another 10 years. So, that's one where I say get back to me in 5 years for that exact reason. But for the others, I have Ronald Acuna Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr., Juan Soto, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Julio Rodriguez, Adley Rutschman, Rafael Devers, Jordan Alvarez, Shane Bieber, Sandy Alcantara, and Corbin Burns. So I provided two explanations on this one. The first being Adley Rutschman. This is obviously a very bold pick considering he has only played 160 games and he is not even like locked up by a team yet by the Orioles. Julio, he did only play, he has only played one full season, but he's under contract for like between 12 and 17 years. Adley Rutschman, on the other hand, has only played 160 games. He has 6.7 F WAR and 6.7 B WAR, and he has 132 OPS plus as a catcher. My biggest Adley stat, he is 3.3 B WAR away from becoming the first catcher in baseball history with 10 B WAR in their first two seasons. And I think it's very realistic to believe he gets there. Uh, and like I mentioned earlier, the BBWA loves their catchers. They outperform what their statistics say based on the trends on how they do on Hall of Fame ballots. And I think Adley is a guy that we can start saying, get back to me in 5 years on that one. The other one I put was Jordan Alvarez. He's a guy that is kind of only known for offense, and he is a left fielder, but he kind of, I feel like, is viewed more as a DH. He is 15.7 F WAR and 15.1 B WAR, and he has 162 OPS plus in 1,700 plate appearances. In the integration era that goes back to 1947, there are 7 players with a 160 OPS plus and 1,500 plus plate appearances before turning 27, and they are Ralph Kiner, Mickey Mantle, Dick Allen, Frank Thomas, Albert Pujols, Mike Trout, and Jordan Alvarez. Uh, this is a Dick Allen stat just as much as it's a Jordan Alvarez stat, but uh, he is in the upper echelon of like amazing hitters to start their career. Like Trout got compared to Mantle all the time, or DiMaggio all the time when he was coming up. If we're talking just offensively, Jordan Alvarez is in the upper echelon, and I think we can start talking about his Hall of Fame case right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I also put him in the Get Back to Me in 5 years. The Get
Yeah.
Back to Me in 5 years one, I also made a very interesting list because I have guys that are like 22 and I have guys that are like 30.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So Bogarts I put in the Get Back to Me in 5 years. And my explanation for that is like I think he's an interesting player based on like where his defense has varied. We've seen that, in the past couple years where he went from a really bad defensive shortstop in 2021 to a really good defensive shortstop last year and this year.
Isn't he in the 100th percentile of outs above average?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it's weird. I think but he also only has like still very good, but he still has like 2 defensive runs saved. So I don't know. There's some weird variance with that early in the season for sure. And I put him get back to me in 5 years because he's in like the mid 30s for wins above replacement. And I'm wondering like where his power is going to be at because, he had a power drop last year, hasn't had as much power this year. And I think I'm just curious as to what he will do because if I'm having the 8 ball, I think he's also Hall of Very good, but he could literally just outperform my expectations each year by like half a win above replacement, and then he's like Hall of Fame level for me.
I do worry about like, how much he like I it's kind of like the Felix Hernandez complex where like, he's Hall of Fame worthy, but then he really struggles in his last couple seasons and like a lot of his rate stats kind of fall like far below where you'd even consider.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to it's hard to say with Bogart. So
Because he is
yeah,
locked up for 11 years and beyond his to his age 42 season.
right. And if he's good for like literally 1 or 2 years longer than I expect him to be good, then I think he's probably a Hall of Famer. But outlooking him, I'm a little hesitant. And then my other get back to me in 5 years, I put Ronald Acuna Jr. I put Rafael Devers just because of how much bat talent he has.
So
Like
did I.
we could see, he he's already shown to be a guy who could get over 900 OPS for you. He could easily get 1,000 OPSs, maybe even an 1,100 OPS for the Red Sox at certain points in his career. He's only 26, so that's part of why I put him. I also put Adley Rutschman. That's an amazing talent. He's probably going to be the best catcher for the next 5-6 years in baseball. I put Austin Riley. I put Yordan Alvarez, Corbin Burns, Kyle Tucker, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And then for younger guys, I put Julio Rodriguez and Spencer Strider. I also put Zach Gallen. Maybe it's recency
Wow.
bias. I don't
Okay.
know. But he's only 27, so
Yeah.
that's a factor. I put I added Aaron Nola because you mentioned him in the On a Path, and I also put Fernando Tatis Jr. because I completely blanked on him before.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
he's absolutely amazing. For Zach Gallen, I think just part like why I put him in. I'm itching to put Alcantara on. I feel like it might be stupid not to put Alcantara on the
Yeah.
get back to me in 5, but I think Gallen just has like the great strikeout to walk numbers, at least this year. And last year he was pretty good with it. 2020, he was good with that. So I think I'm optimistic with that. He's been able to show to get a lot of innings too. Alcantara, the case is like he's going to get you innings. It's just going to be consistent. He's going to be able to do that. I think my worry with Alcantara is he doesn't get as many strikeouts, and pitchers that do well over a greater amount of time typically got a lot of strikeouts. So maybe but I could be wrong. Alcantara could just be like a Greg Maddux type, but I'm not sure. But
Sure.
he's bordering get back to me in 5 years for me, but I don't know. It's not super official, but I don't know. Do we want to do some more explaining?
I explained everyone that I like had
Did
stuff for. I don't know. I mean,
did we both have Austin Riley?
I thought about him, but I put him off. But that's one where I could see myself being wrong on. He just missed for me. There were a couple guys that just missed for me. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
there were a couple guys.
For why I put Austin Riley, I think him like he's similar to Devers in like he has a lot of just bat talent. High in the barrel rate ranks. It's easy, it like he's not having a great year so far this year, but I see that easily redirecting itself and
I
go ahead.
I swear to God, I typed Alex Bregman, but I don't see him here. I put him in on a path.
Oh, that's weird. I think I
Yeah.
also forgot about Alex Bregman.
No, I meant to put Alex Bregman. I was very close on Matt Chapman. I ended up not putting him though. Um, who else was I close on? There were a couple guys. Adam Wainwright I mentioned before. I swear to God, I meant to put Alex Bregman, but I don't see him here. I okay, add Alex Bregman to my on a path, but I meant to put him. Um, yeah, he's definitely got to be there for me.
Yeah, Alex Bregman I'll also put um on a path. So in the in the going back in time, we'll do that. Um so
Yeah,
yeah, did you put Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
I did. I put him in. Get back to me in 5 years.
Um
I
yeah,
put Shane Bieber as well, and put in Corbin Burns.
I put
Uh,
Corbin Burns too.
yeah,
Um I yeah, the one I'm kind of weird on. Um it, maybe it's a weird pick is Kyle Tucker. Um
yeah. I just haven't seen enough from him to be like, yeah, we got to talk about this one later.
yeah, I think I might have had just lower standards for the get back to me in 5 years because it was mostly guys that like piqued my curiosity.
Yeah,
But Tucker has amazing like just again like great contact rates, great great batted ball profile, great hard hit rate, all that stuff, and also very good defense. So I think over a longer sample we could see him as one of the better players in baseball. But yeah, it is fair to say like, oh, we haven't seen enough from him because yeah,
yeah.
he
I
hasn't
wouldn't
been
be
an MVP
shocked.
finalist or anything.
I wouldn't be shocked if one day we're talking about him, but not yet.
And I think yeah, I made mine very subjective because I put two guys that are literally in their second year. I put
Hmm.
Julio Rodriguez because of just great defense, um great batted ball profile stuff, great base running. Like that's an amazing talent, and I could see him being, in 5 years we could see him on a path. Spencer
Yeah.
Strider, same thing. Like, I mean, he's literally leading in strikeout rate over the past 2 years and all that.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, as long as he can stay healthy, I see no reason why he
Yeah.
isn't.
Mine was also, I guess, very subjective because I put Julio, but not, and like Adley, but not Spencer Strider. I did think about him.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's tough because you don't know how many innings he's going to throw. You
hmm.
don't know if some problem is going to arise. Not
Yeah.
uh,
Pitchers are a little more, I guess, risky for
yeah,
that reason. Exactly.
yeah, that's
Um,
true.
yeah. Do we want to get into players to highlight, or is there anything more that needs to be said?
No, I don't think so. I think good discussion to have. I
Yeah.
think it's MLB now brought up a good potential for dialogue. So I
Hmm.
appreciate them for that because yeah, you don't really think about that while it's happening. It's more like 5 years after, and it's like, oh, this guy's on the ballot. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think the ballots are gonna give it really fun when you and I are in like our 30s, when it's guys that we got to watch the peak of.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Because I mean,
because
next year it's like, oh, Joe Mauer is on the ballot, but like I didn't watch most of his career. Chase Utley, same thing. I
yeah,
guess Adrian Beltre we kind of did watch the peak of because he peaked very late. He's on the ballot next year.
that's true. And what's funny is like I mention this sometimes during Hall of Fame talk because it's a funny subject, but like literally like we talk about like Andrew Jones, Scott Rowland. My memory of Scott Rowland is like him on the Blue Jays as like a 36-year-old just diving down the third baseline, which and like not being his peak form. And my memory of Andrew Jones is being like,
Yeah, did you see him in person?
I watched a Blue Jays Red Sox game in '09, and I think that's when he
Okay.
was there.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, you probably had no idea. Actually, that guy's like a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no idea. And then Andrew Jones, I just remembered as like an overweight pinch hitter for the Yankees and not, the best defensive outfielder of all time,
Yeah, I mean,
statistically and just by eye test.
I saw Vlad Guerrero Sr. play for the Orioles in 2011, and 11-year-old me had no idea. Like, actually, this guy used to be insane with the Angels and the Expos,
Yeah,
and now he's just, happy to get some ABs for the Baltimore Orioles.
Right. Exactly.
Although
Exactly.
he was good for the O's and he was good for the Rangers in 2010.
Right. Yeah. And he
Yeah.
just didn't get signed again, which was weird.
Yeah, that's definitely my weird, like, I went back and was like, wait, I saw this guy play. Are you kidding me? And I had no idea.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
why didn't I understand at 11 years old how good Vladimir Guerrero was in 2004 when I was 4 years old?
Why didn't someone take out their original iPhone and show me a YouTube video of him throwing out that guy with the Expos?
Yeah. Yeah, dude, why didn't my dad pull out his BlackBerry and be like, see, he hit this ball off the ground in this very ballpark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why didn't he? Yeah, why didn't he pull it out and wait an hour for the video to load?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, what's up with that?
exactly, exactly. So that will lead into players to highlight for good and bad reasons, where we will start off with some players that have been outperforming our expectations a little bit, at least as of late. For our Monday, May 22nd, 2023 edition of
How about that?
Who do you have for us today?
So my how about that? I briefly mentioned him, I think last show or a couple shows ago. I think it was last show. I'm talking about the new ground god in Major League Baseball. I'm talking about Bryce Elder of the Atlanta Braves, who in the month of May has a 1.93 ERA and a 2.56 FIP. He has a K to walk ratio of 3.17 over this time and has not allowed a home run. Throughout May, he has a 56.1% ground ball rate, the sixth highest among the 104 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls throughout the month. His sinker slider combo has been equally effective. Obviously, when you're talking about most ground ball guys, guys that are not named Andre Palante, you're talking about sinker ballers. And that's exactly what Bryce Elder is. His sinker has a ground ball rate of 61.3% in the month of May. That is 7% above the MLB average. But his slider has actually been what's outperforming it. Almost every time you see a sinker baller with a good slider is like their secondary pitch. Logan Webb is a good example. Their slider usually gets hit in the air a lot, but as for Elder, his slider actually gets hit on the ground just as much. His slider in the month of May has a ground ball rate of 60.9%, only 0.6 behind the sinker, and that is the 11th highest rate among the 87 pitchers with at least 10 batted balls against their slider. He is 23. It leads the pitchers with 20 batted balls against their slider. His sweet spot rate for his slider is 17.4% in May, and that is the 11th lowest. And his negative 6.9 run value against his slider is the lowest in the majors this month. That means for every slider he throws, for all the sliders he's thrown, he's preventing almost 7 runs, which is really impressive. Opponents are hitting 0.91 against it in May and slugging 152. Throughout the season, his slider has had a run value of a negative 11. That is tied for the 4th lowest among all pitches throughout all of baseball. And among the 274 pitches with at least 50 batted balls against them this year, Elder's slider ranks 13th lowest in batting average at 132, 5th lowest in slugging at 171, and 6th lowest in WOBA at 185. So Bryce Elder, he's kind of been the newest Braves created pitcher that's been doing extraordinarily well this season. And those me that know that I love me some ground ball pitchers, Logan Webb, Andre Palante, Framber Valdez, and Bryce Elder is kind of becoming that next guy. And he's been really awesome in the month of May.
Yeah, Bryce Elder.
How about that?
Yeah, and yeah, very necessary for the Braves rotation. They've lost Max Fried for a couple months, defending Cy Young runner-up, but they're doing fine because of guys like Bryce Elder stepping up. All right, so now how about that? This is a guy who I was a little early on. He was my 2022 Rays player to watch because he was a top 60 prospect. Struggled a little bit last year, but is really finding his stride this year. I'm talking about Josh Lowe, who in 144 plate appearances this year, he is hitting 318 with a 1027 OPS and a 185 weighted runs created plus. Out of 179 hitters with 140 plus plate appearances this year, Josh Lowe leads in slugging is 5th in OPS and 2nd in weighted runs created plus. His expected numbers are kind of on par, maybe getting slightly lucky, but not to an extreme level. His expected WOBA is in the 94th percentile, and his expected slugging is in the 97th percentile. A lot of that has to do with his extreme increase in barrel rate. From 2022 to 2023, his barrel rate has gone from 5.2% to 15.0%. And also, he's doing better avoiding strikeouts. His strikeout rate has gone from 33% down to 22%. A lot of this has to do with him just seeing less pitches and getting less deep into counts against his favor. He went from going to a 2-strike count in 65% of his plate appearances last year to 56% of his plate appearances this year. So a 9% drop in seeing 2-strike counts. And when he does get to a 2-strike count, his called strike and whiff rate on 2-strike counts has gone from 23% to 18%. So he's doing a little bit better when it does get to 2 strikes. Also, Josh Lowe's average exit velocity on fly balls has gone from 92.9 miles per hour to 94.6 miles per hour. A good increase. It's going to increase his, home run rate on fly balls. And but what is much more impactful is that he has went from pulling 18% of his fly balls to pulling 34% of his fly balls. That's a big mark because obviously, in literally every ballpark, especially, he's a left-handed hitter. In every ballpark, it is shorter to right field than it is to center field. So if he's pulling more of his fly balls, he's going to do a lot better on it. And the higher exit velocity and pull rate on fly balls has led his home run fly ball ratio from going from 4% last year to 28% this year, which is pretty unbelievable. It's a large factor in what's been making him hit home runs and just doing overall better. So yeah, Josh Lowe has made an adjustment, pulling more fly balls, hitting harder fly balls, therefore getting a lot more home runs and raising his average OPS, everything. So Josh Lowe.
How about that?
All right, so now we go from the highs to the lows, where we're talking players or subjects that have been underperforming with our Monday, May 22nd, 2023 edition of
Slightly alarming.
Who do you have for us today?
So for my slightly alarming, I'm actually talking again about a guy that we talked about kind of at length earlier. I'm talking about Andres Jimenez,
Nice.
who I was hoping you weren't going to go too deep into him because I have a lot on him. Luckily, I'm using a different span, though. Since April 10th, this has kind of been a whole season thing with him. He is slashing 183, 254, 270 for a 524 OPS and a 47 weighted runs created plus, the 4th lowest among the 175 qualifiers. Throughout this year, he ranks dead last in average exit velocity and hard hit rate. His average exit velocity is 83.8 miles per hour. His hard hit rate is 20%. Remember how I said if you look at a Savant page, it's like the percentiles are really bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about first percentile in 2 of the main batted ball statistics.
Yeah.
He also ranks 11th. He also ranks tied for 11th lowest in barrel rate this season at 1.2% per plate appearance. Not very good. And throughout this span, 18.1% of his batted balls have been 30 plus degrees and 85 miles per hour or less. That's essentially a high fly ball that is not going to get out, and it will almost always be a fly out. That is the 16th highest rate among the 278 hitters with at least 50 batted balls over the span. So not only is he hitting the ball at the softest rate, but he's also hitting the ball in the air far too much. And that's why you're seeing a lot of the decreases that you're seeing for him. His outs above average this year has gone from the 98th percentile in 2022 to the 35th percentile in 2023. And this is because last year he specifically dominated in plays to his right. He had 10 outs above average to his right. That was the 4th highest in all of baseball. And this year he is at a flat 0, and there are 96 players that have accumulated at least 1 out above average to their right. And Andres Jimenez has done that none of the time. His success rate overall this year, his success rate added has gone from 3% to -1%, which is pretty substantial between the 2 years. So Andres Jimenez, he's hitting the ball very lightly. He's not playing good defense. And obviously, like we mentioned earlier, he's a large part of the reason why the Guardians have been slipping over the last 20 games.
Yeah, Andres Jimenez.
Slightly alarming.
And yeah, they did just give him an extension before this year.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, yeah, not hitting the ball hard or in the right places, and he's playing bad defense, as you mentioned. Not the best. My slightly alarming is also a younger guy who really broke out last year. In fact, won National League Rookie of the Year. I'm talking about Michael Harris, who in 91 plate appearances this year, he is hitting 171 with a 509 OPS and a 41 weighted runs created plus. Out of 277 hitters with 90 plus plate appearances this year, he is bottom 10 in average slugging, OPS, and weighted runs created plus. Along with that, Michael Harris's sweet spot rate has gone from 33% down to 23%. His line drive rate has gone from 22% to 12%, and his pop-up rate has gone from 4% up to 11%. So he's hitting far less line drives and far more pop-ups, which is never going to turn out well for any player. Along with that, out of 319 hitters with 50 plus batted balls this year, his sweet spot rate ranks 5th lowest, and his line drive rate ranks 4th lowest. That's pretty much bottom 1 to 2% in line drive rate and sweet spot rate. And this I found particularly crazy. From 2022 to 2023, Michael Harris has gone from slugging 632 on fastballs to slugging 189 with a 157 expected slugging on fastballs. His whiff rate on fastballs has gone from 23% to 30%, and his average exit velocity on fastballs has gone from 89.3 miles per hour to 84.0 miles per hour. Also, he had a 36% sweet spot rate on fastballs last year, but has a 7% sweet spot rate against them this year on 27 batted balls, 2 batted balls in the sweet spot on fastballs this year. There are 323 hitters to see 150 plus fastballs this year. And not only does Harris have the lowest expected slugging against them, no one is within 80 points of him in expected slugging on fastballs. I don't know what his problem is. It's pretty insane to see a year-to-year change like that, from going to slugging over 600 on, four seamers, cutters, sinkers, to slugging under 200 on them. So I don't know if it was a bad adjustment or a bad habit that he's running into, but he is just not seeing fastballs the same way he used to, and not seeing really any pitch the way he used to, but especially fastballs. So Michael Harris so far in 2023.
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, I know he was just on the IL. I'm trying to find it. He had a strained lower back. He was out for like a pretty minimal amount of time, but I don't know, maybe it's something with that's still not feeling right.
Right. Yeah, it definitely could be attributed to the injury, because I tried to look up the injury, but I found something that took him out of like a game that was day to day, but not the IL stint. But yeah, it's interesting, but once again, Braves keep rolling. They're still a first place team.
Yep. Yeah, of course they are.
So yeah, shout out to them. All right, so that leads into a preview of the week ahead, where I will be looking at the series to watch. Daniel will be looking at the day-by-day pitching matchups. So for series to watch, I have 3 series that I'm looking at here. The Rays and Blue Jays, that's a good matchup. 2 teams that were doing pretty hot, but have cooled off a little bit since their little hot stretches. That's going to be at Tropicana Field. I believe that will span over 4 games. So good series.
That'll be Kevin Kiermaier's first time back.
Yeah,
One
of the long,
he's
probably one of the longest tenured Rays ever.
Yeah,
like he's up there with like David Price as like face of the franchise.
Evan Longoria,
Evan
future Hall of
Longoria too.
Famer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the actual one. But yeah, and another series to watch.
Probably
Is,
sorry to interrupt. Probably the longest tenured Ray that wasn't on the 2008 team,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
right? Because they did keep a lot of those guys for a decent amount of time.
Yeah, yeah. The other series to watch, also an AL East matchup, Yankees Orioles. The Yankees are hosting, and that is going to be a another 4-game series, or I believe, unless it doesn't
Yes, it
start on
is.
Monday. Um,
It does not start on Monday, so it would
it's
be a
a
3-gamer.
3-game series, spans Tuesday to Thursday. I was looking up before the show. I believe they are the second and third best teams in the AL since like May 8th or something like that. So they're both rolling pretty hot. And then
Interesting.
these series to watch this week is Braves Dodgers, who I believe are the two best teams in the National League right now, or just overall based on how it's been. I thought it was going to be Braves Padres, were the two best teams in the National League, but it's still Braves Dodgers. That will span over 3 games. It'll be Monday through Wednesday. I think it's always a good matchup when those two teams face off. So yeah, those 3 series are my series to watch. What do you got for the day-by-day matchups?
So on Monday, you got Dane Dunning versus Luis Ortiz in Rangers Pirates. That'll be at PNC. A couple of interesting pitchers. Jordan Montgomery will be going for the Cardinals against the Reds. That'll be in Great American Ballpark. Chris Bassett, who's done really well in his last few starts, will be going for the Blue Jays against the Rays. Zach Wheeler will be going for the Phillies against the Diamondbacks in Citizens Bank Park. Gavin Stone, my NL Rookie of the Year pick. He will be pitching tonight against Charlie Morton and the Braves. He'll be pitching for the Dodgers. He already made one start in his career. He's going to be making his second start, so that's exciting. Brady Singer will be pitching for the Royals against the Tigers, and that'll be in Kauffman Stadium. Bailey Ober will pitch for the Twins against the Giants in Minnesota. Edward Cabrera will pitch for the Marlins against the Rockies in Coors Field. The last time Edward Cabrera pitched in Coors Field, he was throwing 96-mile-per-hour changeups, so that'll be fun to watch tonight. Luis Castillo will be going for the Mariners against the A's in Seattle, and the matchup of the night comes from Astros Brewers in Milwaukee. It's Christian Javier versus Corbin Burns.
Yeah,
that one goes without saying, doesn't it? So on Tuesday, you have Dylan Cease going for the White Sox against the Guardians. That'll be in Progressive Field. Nathan Eovaldi and Rich Hill, a couple of former Red Sox, going into Rangers Pirates. You'll have Graham Ashcraft going for the Reds against the Cardinals. Jose Barrios and Taj Bradley facing each other in Blue Jays Rays. That's a pretty good matchup. You got Yu Darvish versus Mackenzie Gore, the Matt Gore revenge game.
yeah.
He'll be going against the Padres. So you will have Kyle Bradish versus Garrett Cole in Orioles Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Kodai Senga and Drew Smiley will face each other in Mets Cubs. I believe you're going to have Bobby Miller versus Spencer Strider in Dodgers Braves. The Dodgers haven't officially announced their starter yet, but it's to be announced, and Bobby Miller was called up recently, so I think that's what you're getting. If so, that's going to be a really, really cool matchup. You're going to have Yuri Perez facing the Rockies for the Marlins in Coors. Brian Bale facing the Angels for the Red Sox in Anaheim. And matchup of the night comes from Giants Twins. It's a couple of how about that's of yours, Chris. It'll be Alex Cobb versus Sonny Gray.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
The only reason I didn't put Bobby Miller versus Spencer Strider as matchup of the night is because the Dodgers haven't officially announced their starter. But if that's actually the matchup, that'll be really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bobby Miller will be making his major league debut. He throws 100 miles per hour. He's a beast. And Spencer Strider needs no introduction. On a Wednesday, you have Martin Perez going for the Rangers against the Pirates. You're going to have Anthony DeSclafani and Joe Ryan facing each other in Giants Twins. Joe Ryan has been killing it lately. Michael Kopech, who pitched 8 innings with 10 strikeouts in his last start, will be going against Cal Quantrill in White Sox Guardians. You will have Shane McClanahan pitching for the Rays against Yusei Kikuchi and the Blue Jays in Tropicana. You will have Tony Gonsolin and How About That, Bryce Elder facing each other in Dodgers Braves. Zach Greinke will be going for the Tigers against for the Royals against the Tigers. You will have Tyler McGill versus Marcus Stroman, the Marcus Stroman revenge game in Mets, Cubs, and Wrigley. Sandy Alcantara will be facing the Rockies for the Marlins at Coors. Tyler Anderson will be facing the Red Sox for the Angels. Bryce Miller will be facing the A's for the Mariners at T-Mobile Park. He's been awesome this year. And matchup of the day comes from Diamondbacks Phillies. It's Zach Gallen versus Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, it's a good one. Pretty good one. Do you have matchups for Thursday or too early?
No, we're gonna cut it off at Wednesday.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. All right. Well, that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, where I look like a little bit of a lobster after staying out in the sun too long unprotected, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out our YouTube shorts. We have 2 ones from the last week. If you want to check out a little analysis there. And if you are listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, want to watch the audio only streams, go to the Apple Podcasts and Spotify streams. They are called Above Replacement Radio, and follow and subscribe to, and whatnot to those. And if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Danielle on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran. On Twitter, you can find you can find some little bit of betting advice from Daniel, not necessarily direct betting advice, but
one of our friends texted me this weekend and asked if he should take my tweet and do the bets, and I said yes, and Salvador Perez homered in his first at bat.
Yeah. So check out who does well against particular pitchers who are facing, they're facing that particular pitcher that day. Daniel breaks them down every day on his Twitter at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.